A warm welcome to our series, The Open Space of Application Operations within SAP BTP. So this series covers several aspects of application operations, and today we will focus on transport management. And so today we have our expert, Harald Stevens, here, who will provide further details, insights, especially also on how SAP Cloud Transport Management can be integrated with SAP's application lifecycle management solutions, namely the SAP Solution Manager, Change Request Management, CHARM, and SAP Cloud ALM. The specifics of these integrations, and he will show an extensive demo.
Right.
Wait just a second. I just wanted to provide further information before handing over to you, Harald. I know you're ready to start. That's great. So our series today is basically a companion series to the universe of SAP BTP in a nutshell. I will post the link to it in a second. And I would also like to bring to your attention a 2-hour session event full of tips and tricks on SAP Fiori UX and its technologies. I will also post that link in the chat. Further, I wanted to bring to your attention the next Garage series episode 5, with the topic Use SAP Build Apps to Build Side-by-Side UI Extensions for SAP S/4HANA. And in addition, I would like to bring to your attention, in case you haven't heard from them, there are several practitioner forums you can participate in the Garage series. Then we have Screen Personas every Wednesday, Fiori every Thursday, every Tuesday. Third Tuesday, we have a practitioner forum on BTP in general, and one on SAP Build Process Automation. And with this, Harald, over to you.
Thanks so much, Tanja. With me today, I have my dear colleague, Boris Saske. He will answer some questions in the chat if they come up. So we are working on the same team, and we are more or less covering similar topics. He's concentrating on the overall story. Maybe you might have heard him last week in this series. And so from that point of view, I'm quite happy that Boris will support me here. Thanks a lot, Boris, for that.
No, thanks a lot. Happy to support. And yeah, just that you see when my name pops up in the chat, then you know where it's coming from. But
it comes from the official source if Boris Saske answers to you. All right. Yeah, thanks a lot, Boris, again. And then let's go. I will start sharing. And so come on, there you go. So now we are talking today, as Tanja already said, about how to integrate our transport solution, the SAP Cloud Transport Management, with our application lifecycle management solutions, which are available in 2 flavors. One is the well-known and well-established SAP Solution Manager, based on an ABAP backend system. And on the other side, we have the Cloud ALM, a cloud-based solution, which gains more and more traction. And so transport management can be integrated with both. And I would like to remind you of the overall story we are talking about. Here we have this overall picture, I think, that was introduced by Boris in the teaser session to this one. And where we have our, say, portfolio open to you, what kind of tools we are offering in the realm of SAP BTP for developing, running CI/CD pipelines, for delivering changes, and for operating the applications you have created. And today, we will focus on the Cloud Transport Management service, so which is my baby as a product manager. And its integration into the application lifecycle management tools we are offering. So, which is, as said, SAP Cloud ALM, SAP Solution Manager, and the SAP Focused Run. And with all of them, or to be more exact, for the delivery part, we're talking here about Focused Build, but still we have an integration available between SAP Cloud Transport Management and Focused Build. All right, so that's just as a reminder where in the landscape we are currently moving. A few minutes about transport management in case you don't know that tool. So basically, transport management is our solution for transporting, for delivering changes in BTP or in the cloud, to be more general. However, the use cases so far are concentrating on SAP BTP. It is a service itself running in BTP. It's running in a Cloud Foundry environment, but it can handle several types of environments, Neo, Cloud Foundry, and quite new, the ABAP environment in BTP as well. What you do is you subscribe to Cloud Transport Management, and then you look into the, say, sub-accounts, tenants of your applications, or of your development environment, which should be part of your transport landscape, of your delivery landscape. And then for each of these sub-accounts, you create a so-called transport node, which is a virtual representation of your sub-account landscape. So in this case, the typical simple 3 sub-account landscape: development, quality assurance, production. But of course, this could be more complex if needed. And then for each of the nodes which are used for deploying content, you are defining destinations. So it's the standard destination service of BTP, which is used here. And these point to some endpoint in your sub-account or in your service you are targeting, which then hands over the content in the transport request to this receiving endpoint, and there it's then deployed to the target. And then you define transport routes between those transport nodes, which are showing in which direction the transport requests are flowing through your landscape. So by this you have a directed direction. So the transport start and development node, then they move to the quality node, and then move to production node. And so this asset landscape can be more complex if needed. So you can have, for example, more than one production node, then you just distribute the content to several targets from your QA system. You could have a pre-production system in between. You could have 2 development environments, one for the project work and one for the maintenance work, and they flow together in one joint test environment. All is possible to accommodate your processes here. And if we now talk about so security, we have a very detailed role concept inside transport management, and it's possible to create roles based on our templates, which are node specific, which means you could, for example, give access to the QA node to a bigger group of people, the testers, for example, or people working in the QA realm, and you could restrict the access to the production node to very few people who are allowed to initiate transports into the production environment. And that can be configured on node level. What we also offer is a very extensive logging mechanism. All the steps which are performed inside transport management are logged, and these logs can also be downloaded and handed over to external auditors, for example, so that we fulfill fairly strict audit requirements if needed. And then if we talk about using the overall landscape, is then we start with some creation of artifacts or change of the artifacts or content in a development environment, generally speaking. And then we upload that content to transport management, create a transport request from there, and this transport request moves through your landscape. Then it reaches eventually the QA node, and from there you trigger the import. Then the content is then deployed to the QA sub-account or QA tenant. And the transport then moves further on to production and is then imported into the production sub-account. So this is more or less how it's used. And of course, this kind of integration here with your development environment, that of course strongly depends on what you are creating. So if we talk about application development, what I will show today, we have some development environment like Business Application Studio or something like that, Eclipse, which creates the application. And then we need some kind of build tool to build the application. Normally, we would recommend to use a CI/CD service for that, or CI/CD pipeline for that. And this pipeline hands over the content to transport management. So this would be the typical development use case. And if we now talk about, say, an application configuration, then we could look, for example, at cloud integration as a very prominent use case for transport management. Here we have the design time of cloud integration, from which the integration developer, integration manager can initiate a transport of a integration package or of an integration flow, iFlow. So that can be triggered. And then from within the development environment of cloud integration, we create the transport directly and hand it over to transport management. So it really depends on the use case we're looking at. So here a brief refresher of what we can do with transport management. So we have these enterprise-ready change management process on a basic level inside transport management. We have this audit trail of changes. We have a role concept which can enforce a 4 I's principle or separation of concerns. And we can synchronize transports with on-premise artifacts if we integrate with our higher level ALM tools, which I will show today. So the synchronization with, say, on-premise artifacts transports, this happens on the level of the ALM tools, and I will show that. If we talk about what can we cover with transport management, we have this case of development artifacts. I mentioned that. We have application content like API management, work zone, cloud integration, and so on. And of course, we are constantly working on further content types to be enabled. We have the integration with CI/CD. We have the integration with Cloud Change Management in Solution Manager and Cloud ALM, which will be the topic of today. We have open APIs, so if needed, we can integrate with other tools. So creating of transport requests, starting the import, retrieving the logs, everything is available as an open API, so that other tools can also be make use of transport management if needed. Okay, and transport management is a service available via pay-as-you-go, CPAA contracts, or you can try it out in the free tier model and then switch to a payable model if needed. So far, the brief overview about cloud transport management. And now let's look into the scenarios we are covering today. So as said, we have, when we're talking about application lifecycle management solutions, we have mainly two offerings at SAP. One is the SAP Solution Manager. And inside the Solution Manager, we make use of the change request management or the quality gate management. These are two tools available inside Solution Manager to handle or to manage changes. Charm, of course, is the full-blown functionality with all kinds of functionality, whereas QGM is somewhat simpler or has less functionality, but still is used in some cases. But Charm, of course, is the one which is used most. So what happens is that in Charm, you have so-called change documents. These are describing, say, a closed set of changes belonging together to one project step. It is now possible to attach classical ABAP transports to a change document, and to the same change document, you can attach transport requests from Cloud Transport Management. And if then this change document changes its status, say from the status in development to the status to be tested, the corresponding transports are triggered automatically, synchronously, into the test environment in the cloud and the test environment in the on-premise system. Yeah, and so by that, you ensure that you have a, say, consistent state of your overall hybrid application in both worlds. Test in the cloud, test in on-premise. And then you can do integrated tests and see, okay, if everything works together. And then if this is okay, then the next step would be to move the change document further in your workflow, and eventually you approve the import into production inside the change document. And this then again triggers the synchronous import of the cloud transports and the on-premise transports in the corresponding production environments. So that is more or less the idea how this works, so that you combine the two types of transport requests inside a change document. This approach is available since quite a while already. So it came with the SPS 10 of Solution Manager that was released in December 2019. A little later came the integration with a Focus Build, because Focus Build is building upon the corresponding Solution Manager release. And as far as I know, this is the feature pack 8 of Focus Build, but I'm not totally sure about that, which was then based upon the SPS 12 of Solution Manager. Yeah. And from then on, you can also use Focus Build to integrate with CTMS if needed. Yeah. What I should also mention is that, of course, inside the change document, you cannot only use classical ABAP transports with the CTS, you can also use non-ABAP on-premise transports, say coming from your PIPO system, which are connected via CTS Plus inside your Solution Manager system. What is not yet possible is the combination with the very new GCTS transports inside your on-premise system. This is the Git-enabled CTS. This currently requires a separate type of change document, which is not compatible with the CTMS transports. So if we look into the overall combination, which are possible, we have the ABAP transports, we have the non-ABAP transports with CTS Plus, and we have the cloud transports with CTMS. The other option you have is the integration with Cloud ALM. So Cloud ALM is a service which is also running in BTP, and that's the tool which is gaining more and more functionality. And one of the functionality we are looking into here is the change and deployment management. This is to some extent comparable to what Solution Manager offers in Charm, but has yet less functionality. We will see that in a second in the demo. But still, what is already available is the option to combine cloud transports and on-premise transports in one so-called feature. So what is a change document in Solution Manager is a feature in Cloud ALM. And so you would create a feature in Cloud ALM, and then you can assign ABAP transports, CTS Plus transports on-premise, and cloud transports into one feature. And again, when moving the feature through the workflow steps or the process inside Cloud ALM, then the corresponding imports are triggered synchronously in the corresponding environments. And that will be the main focus of my demo. This possibility is fairly new. So it was released less than a year ago in May 2022, but is already used by some customers. All right, so I think, and now let's look into this scenario I would like to show to you today. So we're talking about the development use case, which means we have our integrated development environment, like Business Application Studio, for example. We have a continuous integration server. In this case, we are using the continuous integration delivery service inside BTP. And then eventually we do a handover of our artifacts or our application, in this case, to transport management. Here we're using the Cloud Transport Management. And we have the integration with our change management or application lifecycle management tools. In this case, I will use the Cloud ALM. And if we have time left, I will also show you how this would look like in Solution Manager as well. All right, so let's go through the process. Create a change in Business Application Studio, trigger the pipeline runs, creates a transport request, and the transport management takes over, controlled by the corresponding ALM tools. So let me go over to the demo, and I will start here on the screen with my development environment. So let me refresh that, because that for sure has not been, I've been inactive too long. Yeah, thought so. Right. Okay, so I have here a fairly simple UI5 application where I have here some view, and I will now do a change to this view. So I will change an icon from the activate icon to the whatever save icon, for example. And now this change has been registered. I will now stage the change in my local repository. I will add some git commit message. Here, open space demo version 1.1, for example. So that is my commit message associated with this change. So I commit this one, and now I have done a local commit to my local repository, and now I would sync these changes with my central source code repository. In this case, it's GitHub, but it can be another one if needed. So I sync those. So I push the changes to my central source code repository as a developer. And what I have done, I have connected or I have set up a so-called webhook in my central source code repository. Whenever I do a push or a commit to this source code repository, then I trigger automatically a pipeline. And in fact, I have connected two pipelines to this one repository. One is targeting the solution manager, and one is targeting my Cloud ALM instance. So if I look into that one more deeply, I see now that this pipeline is now running, and then I can look more deeply into my pipeline, and I see, okay, nothing has yet been done. So I have done it before this presentation, once same thing, more or less. And if I go into this one, I see that this is a very minimal pipeline I've been running. So I only have initiated the pipeline, built the artifact or the application, and then skipped quite a few steps. So unit testing, malware scan, acceptance testing, compliance testing. And I have set up the release step as well. And this release step, if I look into the details of this step, and let me drill down here, we see what happens more or less in this release step is only the upload to Cloud Transport Management. Yeah? So in this case, for the Cloud ALM use case, I'm uploading to the node OpenSAP Dev. And if I look into the other pipeline for the Solution Manager, same thing more or less. If I look here into the pipeline here at the end, I'm handing over to BTP QAS Solman. That's the node connected to the Solution Manager. Yeah, so I can configure these pipelines as needed. Yeah, so I'm using different transport management environments. I'm using different names of the nodes I'm targeting, but basically the step is always the same. I'm handing over the content via the pipeline to transport management. And if I now go to my corresponding transport management environment here in for the Cloud Foundry, for the Cloud ALM use case, sorry, for the Cloud ALM use case, I can now look into my landscape here, and I will find the transport node. I was also again not active, quite not inactive too long. And if you remember the name, it was here OpenSAP Dev, which is the target for the handover in the case of this Cloud ALM integration. And eventually, if I look now into the transport requests, I should see a new transport request appearing here after the pipeline has run through. Yeah, and there it is. Oh no, it's that's an older one. So I see already some older ones. Let me just go for the last 7 days. And then here we will see some transport requests which have been here imported. And let's concentrate here on the transport request 4059 connected to the demo open space version 1.0, which I did before starting the session. And it's connected to some commit ID, which is also mentioned here. At least the beginning of the commit ID is mentioned here, D67, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So this is a very specific state of my application development, and it is now here in this transport request. And if I now go to the feature inside Cloud ALM, so I have created here an open space of ALM within BTP. That's the feature. Currently, it contains nothing. So it's just an empty shell. But of course, in reality, you would describe, okay, what is the content of this feature? What should be developed here? And I can now change the status here of this feature to implementation. So now I'm developing more or less now. So I'm start implementation of this feature. Now it has changed its status, and now I would like to assign transport requests to this feature. Yeah. And to do that, I'm switching into the edit mode for this feature, and can now assign transport requests to this feature. So I'm now checking the transport requests, and you see now here that transport request 4059 with the demo open space V version 1.0. I can pick that one and assign it to my feature. I can also look into ABAP transports. You see here in this choice of transport requests, you see that there are ABAP transport requests which I could now pick and add them to my feature as well. So now I'm adding here some adjustment of currency to my feature. Let's assign that. And now you see that I have now two transports, one ABAP-based transport and one cloud-based transport within the same feature. So let's save and close that here. And now let's assume the development is completed. I would now hand over this feature to test. So I go to hand over to test. Well, let's do it. And now I could start deployment of these transport requests to the corresponding target systems. So in this case, it would be the system 012, which is my ABAP test system, and to the OpenSAP QA, which is a sub-account, QA sub-account, in which I could do the testing. So I'm now starting the deployment. And now, do you want to deploy all transports? Yes, let me do that. And now the corresponding transports are triggered synchronously in both environments. And if I now go to my corresponding queue in transport management, I should have now go to the QA environment. Let's see here, the QA environment. And you see already here is one transport request and the status is running. And if I go more into detail here, we see now that this transport request 4059 is now in running state. So it's currently being imported, triggered from the corresponding feature inside Cloud ALM. And so this will now take a few minutes to be completed. I can refresh here and you say, well, okay, my ABAP transport failed for some reason. I won't look into details here, but basically it would be possible now to drill down and see why the transport failed. Yeah, I'm more interested now in the cloud transports and hopefully they won't fail. But basically, this is here how you would work with two different system landscape. So I didn't look into this transport request. Don't know what is the problem here. Anyway, you see now that this transport request has now been deployed to the OpenSAP QA system, and automatically it checks what are the next systems to be deployed with. Yeah, and you see now here two systems appear, prod and prod US. And again, if I go back to my transport management environment and look into the landscape definition, you see that we have exactly two nodes following the QA node. And this is then retrieved as information from Cloud ALM so that we see here the two nodes as the next upcoming targets. All right, so that more or less shows how this works with Cloud ALM. And of course, then the next step, if the testing was okay, so I would now, well, simulate that I have repaired the problem here and would now approve the corresponding transport for production. So I say now test is okay. I approve the corresponding feature for production. And now the next step would be to deploy into the productive environments. Yeah. And I have to say now that these two nodes are not really two nodes. They are the same node. So the same destination is used here. And that is why normally a transport, one of the transports fails because it's running already when the actual deployment starts because it comes from this same destination. But I think, and let me just double check that, I think I have deactivated the transport in one of the nodes. Hopefully, yeah, okay, you see here for the one production node, the import is disabled. So no risk of running into problems here. So I will now start the deployment. And now the corresponding deployments are scheduled. So currently, let me just see, refresh here. If we can see, yeah, and you see now here the transport fails in the one system because the import is currently disabled. You see that immediately here in Cloud ALM. But the other one is running, and of course, you can later on retrigger the deployment if needed. Okay, so far to this demo of this integration with Cloud ALM. Maybe question to our see, do we have any questions here in the chat so far?
Oh, currently we don't have any questions.
Okay, that gives me time to show you the other option you have when talking about the application lifecycle management tools, and that is Solution Manager. So let's go there. So how does that work in Solution Manager? So basically, what you do is, again, you are modeling your cloud transport management transport nodes as external services inside Solution Manager. So I'm now here in the LMDB, the Landscape Management Database. And if I look into this, okay, all right, I was inactive too long. Okay, let's refresh here. Okay, well.
I actually have a request. Can
Yeah.
we go back? I'm not sure till when, but that is a question mark in the chat.
So to be so what we can do in transport management, we can pick an older transport request and then reset it to be importable again, and then we can import it, and then we are resetting to an older state. It's not a real rollback, it's a re-import of an older state. However, this kind of activity is not yet supported from within Cloud ALM. So it would be a manual activity in transport management so far. Okay, good. Now let's go to one more time to show you the external services. How they are more or less looking like. So if I display those, more or less the important part are the attributes here. You have a attribute which is called, is it a cloud transport management node? Yes. And what's the name of this node inside your transport management environment? So it's called BTP _ QAS _ Solman. And then this is the, say, RFC connection used to connect to the transport management instance. And then you have the name of this system inside your Solution Manager environment. And if I now go to the next higher level, we have the solution landscapes or solution landscape management inside Solution Manager. And you see that these, that these BTQ system appears here in my solution landscape. So as part of the overall landscape, which then can contain ECC, HANA, whatever, S4 HANA systems, and so on and so on. Yeah? So you can have a fairly complex landscape with the corresponding roles of the systems defined here in your solution landscape definition. Yeah? So you see that the BTQ system is the quality assurance system. Yeah, and that the whatever SL4 S4L 100 is the QA system of the S4HANA 2020 system, for example. Yeah, so we have this kind of role definition inside the landscape definition. We don't have a comparable functionality yet in Cloud ALM. So Cloud ALM tries to automatically find out what is the role of the corresponding systems. Yeah. To some extent, it can work with, say, uneven landscapes if we have different number of stages. But of course, that's limited to some extent. Yeah. So here's one example where Solution Manager can do more than Cloud ALM at the moment. And what I've done now, based on this solution landscape, I have created a change cycle, which is more or less a overall description of a set of projects or set of activities belonging together using the same landscape. So you're defining this change cycle. And then based on this change cycle, I have created a change document. And now I'm afraid I have to refresh here. Yeah. And now I'm in trouble, probably because I thought so. Okay, now, but it's not a big deal. I will just start with a new change. Okay, select my change cycle. The name should contain TMS of the change cycle. Let me pick this change cycle here. I have to specify what is the leading item in the configuration database. And in this case, as we have a ABAP part and a cloud part here, I will take the cloud part as a leading object, but it doesn't make any difference. And I will save this now. Now I have created a new change document based on this change cycle, which is again based on the solution landscape I've just shown to you. And I can now switch this change document to the development state. In development, save that. And now in development, I'm able to assign again transport requests. Yeah, so I could now add ABAP transport requests so that the ABAP developers can do their work in the development system of the ABAP world. And I can also assign transport requests from Cloud Transport Management. So let's search. And now you see here that we have several transport requests. All the ones here with the C and many zeros are the ones coming from our transport management environment. And specifically, if we look into make this a little smaller here so that we can see here, hopefully a little more of the text. Yeah, and again here you see the demo open space V1.0 transport request, which has been created from the pipeline with the command I have added. And I can, for example, pick this one and assign it to my assign it to my change document. Yeah, so I take this one, assign it, and now we have this transport request being part of my change document. And as said, I can also add ABAP transport requests to the same change document. I won't do that now because I don't have access to these ABAP development systems. And if I now go to the corresponding transport management environment, and again, probably I will have to refresh here. go into my landscape. And you might remember the name of the node we were talking about. It was the BTP QAS Solman node. Yeah, and if I go into this one, check out the corresponding pipeline here. We see that the transport request here, which was called 9076 open space version 1.0, is here inside this pipeline, inside this queue, waiting to be imported. And now I can trigger this import by switching the status of my change document. So I'm now saying, okay, now I would like to test. So I pass my change to test. Doing that, save it. And this will now trigger again the import into my QA environment. So let's go there and refresh the view here. And we now see that this transport request I've picked is now in a running state. It's now being imported, triggered from within Solution Manager. And of course, you can also see one difference between the ABAP world and the cloud world here. So as the cloud transports are always in released states, they are not open, they are not able to add or change their content. What happens if you now come across a problem, an error during testing? In the ABAP world, you just would do the changes in the test and development environment and would then do another transport of copies. We don't have that for cloud transports. So what you would need to do is you would correct the error, would create a new transport request and add it additionally to this change document. So that is how the process differs between ABAP world and cloud world. And now the transport is through. And if I go down and look into the status of my transport request, we see that it has been imported. And also we can also see it here that the status switch was successful. And if I go to my transport management environment and refresh that again, I see that the transport is gone, which is not what I wanted to show you. I have to change the filtering here. And now we see that the transport has been successfully imported.
Harald, short question. We have two questions in the chat.
Yeah, please.
One is if CTMS Charm integration is available between on-prem Solman and an NS2 SaaS solution. Also if SaaS solution is integrated.
Okay. So there are two parts to the question. So currently, transport management does not yet support our SaaS solutions like SuccessFactors or Concur or something like that. So that is something we are having on our long-term roadmap, but there's no concrete timeline when it will be available. So this would be the question part to the SaaS solutions. Now talking about NS2 specifically, and I think not everybody will know this term. NS2 is the national security cloud environment. It's specifically isolated, and normally it's not easy or possible to reach these clouds from the outside. However, transport management itself is capable of connecting to any of our cloud environments, any of our data centers, as long as the destination can reach its target. So from that point of view, talking about NS2, if we opened the corresponding connection specifically for this destination, then we could also import into an NS2 environment. Yeah. However, if we have customers with these requirements for our security, we normally recommend to have a specific NS2 instance of Cloud Transport Management inside the NS2 environment. And then all the communication can happen inside NS2. And of course, we still have then the requirement that the external Solution Manager can reach this NS2 based transport management instance. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Thanks a lot, Harald. Yeah, also for having the twofold answer to the question.
Yes.
And the other question we have is, if in Cloud ALM feature, is it possible to create a transport request like in SAP Solution Manager change request? We have some differences there, right?
I think I saw it already in the feature that we could also, what we have at least is this release button, which would change the status of a ABAP transport from modifiable to released. But I thought we had the option to do that, but maybe I am mistaken. So it's planned for sure to have that option, but I'm not sure if it's already available. So that's something I would have to check with the colleagues from Cloud ALM.
Thanks, Harald. Yeah, we can, of course, look it up. And right now, another question came in if Cloud Transport Management is available in NS2.
It is, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We were ready for quite a while, quite a long time, but I think we handed over to the management or the administration team and within NS2, I think like 6 or 7 weeks ago. So it should be productive by now, but I'm not 100% sure. But from our point of view, from Transport Management, we have handed over our application to the NS2 administration, so they can set it productive, or they have set it productive. Hopefully, I'm knocking on wood here, but that should have happened a few weeks ago.
Thanks a lot, Harald. And a follow-up question: Do we know if it's been delivered as service, meaning as BTP service, or as local installation? Most probably.
It is. It's a BTP service. So.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Thanks. No further questions for the time being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from that point of view, I think I'm mainly through. I just want to close with some closing slide here, just to give you an idea. How could you, what would be a typical voyage if you start with a cloud project and you start small? Then you would start, say, I'm creating a development in a test account, and then I'm attaching my pipeline to it, so that I have this automation of development process to some extent. And then I find out, okay, that's working basically, and now I would like to add some more control to it. So then you attach that pipeline to Cloud Transport Management, so that after, say, doing some testing, you are handing over to Cloud TMS, so that the import into the more critical systems like pre-production, production are handled with more governance. And then say, okay, now if I reach the point where I have a hybrid project with cloud part and on-premise part, and I would like to synchronize that, I would put it into the control of my very elaborate change management process in Solution Manager. Then this would be the final step to get the full-blown integration available. All right. So far, that would be all from my side. I would like to thank you for being here and for being interested in that topic. And now we have the last few minutes for questions if needed.
Great. Thank you so much, Harald. So far, there's a thank you for the session, as well as the clear answer to the question regarding the CHARM and CTMS integration. So, any other questions? As you can see, if any questions pop up after the presentation, you can either use also the comments area, which will show up sometime after the video is ready on YouTube, or feel free to contact us. Okay, there is a question. Any document or guide to perform step 1 and 2 on slide 9 for SAP BTP ABAP environment?
Okay. All right. So, yes, the integration of the ABAP environment into Cloud Transport Management is quite new. It has been released in February. I'm currently writing a blog post, so for the step-by-step guidance. Of course, there is documentation available in the help portal, but if you're totally new to the topic, it might be a little bit challenging, and therefore, I would I would plan to release that blog post by next week. So that is my plan, my goal. And so by end of next week, we should have the blog post available. There is one other blog post available from an external colleague on that topic. I might provide the link to that. It's quite good. It's not too bad. So mine will be a little more detailed, a little more screenshots, a little more explanation in between. But I think if you are into the topic, you might also be satisfied with the one blog post I will be sending the let me just find the corresponding where do I have it? I will put it into Boris. I'm not sure if you have been on the mail concerning that. Otherwise, I would just.
I have one blog posted now, but I hope it's the right one.
Yeah,
that you also meant.
Yeah, is it the one by a colleague? I think he's from Asia. Is
Yes.
it the one?
Yeah. Okay. That should be the one.
Should be the one. Yeah. Okay. And it's called Setting Up the BTP ABAP Environment Transport Management with Cloud Transport Management Service. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot, Boris. Great.
Did you already post it, Boris? Because I cannot see it. Maybe.
Yeah, in the chat. Yeah.
Then it's not there. So perhaps you can quickly post it to me.
Yeah, sure.
And then
I will
post it in the chat. Obviously, it's not possible for you to post links. That has been a problem in the past already. Oh, perfect. So, any other questions? And here we go with the blog post. Perfect. Great. Yes. Harald, did you want to say something?
If there are no further questions, I would like to thank all the participants again for being so interested, and and I hope you will be happy users of our integrations. And if, as said, if you have questions, don't hesitate to contact us, and we will try to answer them if possible. Thank you very much, and thanks again, Boris, for moderating the chat here and providing the questions to me. Thanks so much. And Tanya, thanks a lot for moderating the whole series. I think it's quite valuable, and please go on with that. Thank you.
Definitely.
Right. Thanks a lot. And yeah, hope to see you also in the next session, right? From BCIC Meonov on using technical ops automation in action. Thanks, Harald. Thanks, Tanja.
Great. Then big thanks to both of you. Harald, thank you so much for this excellent presentation. From the chat, I can see also our attendees thought it was very informative. This is great. And of course, Boris, thank you so much for moderating the questions. And a big thanks to our attendees for joining. And I definitely hope to see you again in one of our other upcoming sessions. And I wish you a great day, a great evening, depending on where you are. Have a great time.